Tell me if this sounds familiar. You finish a series, a book, a movie, game, or TV show and felt like, oh man, that was amazing. What a great ending. What a great story. I just love being in the world, spending time with the characters, and going on adventures with them. I wish it didn't have to end. If only there was more. And then, as if the heavens themselves heard your prayers, an announcement is made that they are indeed giving you more. Oh snap, here we go. What are we gonna do this time? Where will they take us next? I can't wait to see everyone again and... Oh, this is... different. Okay, well, that's no big deal. I'm mainly here for the story and characters and... what? You're kidding me. This is where they decided to go with it? I guess it's alright. Am I missing something here? Because it feels like they kinda missed the mark on this one. Maybe it would have been better if they had just left it alone. Yes, that's right. This was my journey as I played through this game. A game that, on paper, seems like it was made for someone like me, but in practice left me confused, exhausted, and frustrated. Ready or not, it's time to take a look at Persona 5 Strikers. If you asked me to boil down my thoughts about Strikers in one sentence, I would say, it's not a bad game, and that should tell you all you need to know. But for those who want to know the finer details, listen on. Strikers is a game that feels like it's reached 80% of its potential, and what I mean by that is, there were many times throughout my playthrough where I thought, alright, I'm starting to like the direction we're going, but we're not quite there. If only they had taken one more step. If only they had went just a little further, just a little deeper, this would feel good. This would feel right. But too many times was I left frustrated by design decisions that revealed the experience to be more tedious, annoying, or shallow than it first appears to be. What we are presented here doesn't feel like a fully completed or realized thought. There are just too many things that felt either overlooked or rushed for me to believe it is. This game has good bones. It has a solid foundation and core, but it needed one more iteration, one more evolution to really push it forward and make it that polished, well-designed experience that it has the potential to be. You can see it, you can feel it, it's close, but it's not there yet.
Such beauty! Go down! Pull!
Combat is one of the biggest differences between Strikers and the mainline Persona games, and is probably going to be the make or break of your experience. Now me, I like Musou games. I like being able to turn my brain off, mow through enemies, and be a one-man wrecking crew. It's relaxing. So I didn't think the change of combat style would be much of an issue. That is, until I actually started playing. One of the biggest misconceptions I had initially was approaching combat like it was a Warriors game. It's not. On the surface, there are a lot of similarities. Square for light attack, triangle for heavy or special, hordes of enemies, big Musou all-out nuke. Yeah, all standard fare for a Warriors game. But approach it in this way and you will get wrecked. The flow of combat is actually more akin to Nier, requiring the player to always be dodging, use hit and run tactics, go hard with the elemental weakness strat, that's in this game, not Nier, and wait for an opening before jumping in. And that, in and of itself, is fine. Paired with boss-specific mechanics, this adds a layer of strategy and tactics to what may otherwise feel like a simple, repetitive hack and slasher, keeping us, the players, feeling both engaged and challenged. This is good. However, when you start stacking the other design and gameplay elements on top of it, the tower starts to wobble and the cracks start to show. For a game that wants you to watch and react, they sure do make it hard on you. I, for one, can't even tell what's happening on the screen half the time, with specials going off, enemies everywhere, and colors exploding like diarrhea Christmas lights. I don't know where I should be looking or what I should be focused on. It doesn't help that the camera is pulled in as tight as it is, or that it spins and jumps enough to give my eyeballs whiplash. After a fight, you'll either wonder what just happened, feel exhausted from overstimulation and have to take a minute, or both. Most likely, both. And that's because this game has a problem with noise. It's too visually noisy. In design and art, color and space, when used strategically, help guide the user's eyes, directing their attention towards elements of importance and making them stand out from the rest. In other words, they allow you to see more clearly and not have everything gel into one big messy blob. Now I ask you, can you do that here? Is it even possible? When there is too much color, when it is used excessively, or there is too much clutter, too many objects screaming for your attention, the strength of each signal fades. Instead of highlighting key elements and having them stand out, everything ends up blending together, leaving you confused and unaware until it's too late. Does that sound like a fun combat experience to you? Because it sounds like an absolute headache to me. It's just too much. It's overstimulating. There is such a thing as being over-designed, and we've reached that here in this game. Someone needed to turn that dial back a few notches because this is just overload. Other issues with combat. Yes, we're not even done. 1. Your teammates are idiots. When I realized how bad it was, I started wishing this game had been made with Persona's normal turn-based combat system. Not only does your team like face tanking enemy attacks, they enjoy drinking SP like it's Voss water. SP, what you use to summon your personas to break the ridiculous amounts of shields bosses have, is a limited resource. And if I have to spend it rezzing and healing teammates that can't navigate avoidable damage, you're kneecapping my fighting capacity. That's one less shield break, one less debilitate, one less fighter outputting damage, thereby making the battle that much harder at no fault of my own. This is why I like full control turn-based systems. I get to choose what to spend SP on. I get to choose when to use it. If I lose or fail, that's on me. It's 100% my fault. But if you take that control away from me while still having me rely on my AI-controlled teammates, then the result shifts towards RNG. Oh look, my teammates decided to be conservative this time. Looks like I won't be wiping early and have to restart the fight. Again. I seriously started having flashbacks of Persona 3, where teammates would utterly waste SP casting big magic when an enemy could be finished off with a few basic attacks, leaving me handicapped for bigger fights when I really needed it. It's so frustrating. This I do not like. Do not punish the player for stupid AI. No. 2. Why can't I change my party in combat? As you're running through the jails, you'll often come across big fights with no knowledge of who you're up against or when they'll pop up. And oh, would you look at that? The mini-boss is resistant to all of your teammates' elements. Guess we know what that means. You either smash your head against the wall doing chip damage to the boss's health for 15 minutes, or die and restart so you can swap in the proper teammates. Seriously, more dice rolling? Don't waste my time. 3. Bosses feel spongy and it's difficult to predict how many weakness exploits it will take to finally interrupt them. Did you know that bosses have like 6 shields and each one breaks in quarter chunks at a time? And no, just because you hit its weakness doesn't mean it will down or even interrupt them. There were times where it took me 3 hard casts in a row to interrupt a huge room-wide AoE ability, which to me feels a tad bit excessive. That's practically half an SP bar. The best way to fight tends to be spamming square, 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 triangle, which adds an elemental affinity to your heavy attack. Doing this will hopefully prep the boss so that when you find yourself in an emergency, unable to dodge a big attack or mechanic, you can interrupt them with one hard cast. When I figured out that this was the most efficient way to fight, combat became a boring, repetitive filler, since you're basically doing the same combo no matter who you are or who you fight against. 4. This game has a wonky ass camera and focus targeting system. I remember one time when I was fighting a flying enemy, I brought up the persona menu while standing underneath it and the camera just spun endlessly in a circle. I think the main issue here is that the areas and locations we are moving and fighting through are often too small or narrow. The camera is trying to move around obstacles, but that just leads to situations where you literally can't see what's going on. Oh, and don't even bother using focus targeting in a room full of ads. Too often did my focus shift off the boss and onto a trash mob, which caused me to lose track of it amidst the chaos happening on screen. And lastly, 5, which is minor, but it kind of makes my point from earlier, so I'm including it. The jail checkpoints. After fighting the mini-bosses, you'll often find yourself low on stamina and in need of recovery. Exiting a jail will replenish all of your health and stamina, and since the day does not advance when you leave the metaverse, like in Persona 5, you can do this as much as you want to stay topped up, which you will be doing often. So just have the checkpoints give a full recovery and save us the hassle of constantly loading in and out of the jail. See, this is what I mean when I said the game feels like an incomplete thought. There's no real reason why the player needs to be inconvenienced in this way. It serves no real purpose other than to waste our time. Taking that one extra step to think about what players would do, what would they be annoyed by, and then giving us those quality of life features to address them would have done wonders to elevate and enhance the entire gameplay experience. Instead, we have a game that, at times, feels clunky and rough around the edges. So after ripping this game a new asshole, I'm sure I give off the impression that combat is a terrible and unplayable mess. Even with all the complaints I mentioned, you can still get through the entire game without too much of an issue. Somehow, your eyes and your brain get used to being bombarded with color and movement and learn to filter out all the noise and chaos. It's not that bad. I think the reason why I'm so critical is because, as I said before, it's right there. It's so close to feeling good. It just needs some fine-tuning, some restraint and polishing to really make it shine.
Surprise! We get you or what?
One of the best, nope, scratch that, the best aspect of this game is the characters. This game's defining feature and highlight is how it characterizes the Phantom Thieves and portrays them both as a group and as individuals. In the original Persona 5, everything felt so serious, so tense and oppressive. And that makes sense considering how each of the Phantom Thieves were awakening to their true selves and redefining their place in the world and environment around them. While there were moments of levity, they were often very sporadic and brief. It's hard to make fun when you're in the middle of reshaping your life and identity. Also, they were in school, so we couldn't really go anywhere. But now that crisis has been averted and it's summer vacation, we get to explore who the Phantom Thieves are in their downtime, when they're more relaxed and at ease. And I love this. Seeing the crew in vacation mode, hanging out, playing, chowing down and being absolute goofballs, brought back memories of the years I lived in Japan and did pretty much the same thing with my friends. This is what Strikers does better than the original. It really captures that feeling of hanging out with your besties and just having a good time. You know, friends having fun. This more lighthearted and relaxed tone was such a breath of fresh air that I wish we could have slowed down and had a little bit more time in each location to see what the crew would get up to. I would watch a slice of life anime with the Phantom Thieves. That's how strong and captivating their dynamic is. And that dynamic is only made better with the addition of new comic relief and Best Boy Zenkichi, and AI app you wish you had, but not really, Sophia. These two fit so well with the team, adding a degree of resourcefulness to the group, allowing them to expand their operations beyond the confines of Tokyo. Both have likable personalities and interesting character arcs, and you can tell a lot of work was done to fully develop these characters and pace their integration to make sure they didn't feel tacked on or rushed. By the end, each were able to carve out their own role that fit together so seamlessly with the others, which is impressive considering how big the crew already is. If or when the Phantom Thieves decide to gear up for another adventure, I hope we get to see more of these two, as their addition just works oh so well.
Hey everyone! You love me, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah? Then you can give me all your desires.
I was never the biggest wrestling fan growing up, but there was one line that really stuck with me. Know your role. A mantra I wish had been applied here. One of the things that bothers me is when spin-offs overstep their bounds and create storylines and stakes that are on par or equal to that of mainline entries. Look, if you want to go big and have a world-altering, world-ending crisis, then go all out and make a fully developed, full-length sequel. I have no problem with that. But if you're going to be creating a spin-off, side content, keep it contained and keep those stakes in check, because I'm having trouble believing this is all happening again. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's just take 2 steps back. I'm actually quite a fan of how this game starts out. It's summer vacation, the gang is back together, and we're going on a road trip to check out some crazy happenings in the metaverse. The setup and atmosphere are so different from Persona 5 that you really feel like you're getting something different. Something lighter, less heavy, like an anime filler arc. And if I'm going to be honest, this is exactly what I wanted, because that means we get to see more of those fun and silly character moments that the mainline games don't have time to show us. So I was really vibing with the story in the beginning. Downtime was the best time, and I didn't mind that Strikers had basically turned itself into a video sans game when I wasn't looking. I loved watching those character interactions I mentioned before, and seeing the Phantom Thieves shake off the dust to reprise their roles for this new adventure. Characters like Haru and Yusuke, who felt a bit sidelined in 5, got to stand in the spotlight, giving us further insight into who they are and what they stand for. Apparently, Yusuke stands for food. Always food. The monarchs we encounter show us a new reflection of how cognition can be warped and twisted to disastrous effect. And although it is foreshadowed that there is something bigger afoot, they feel contained, localized, smaller, and episodic. Unlike the villains of Persona 5, these adversaries are more sympathetic, and they give our characters a chance to further expand on their arcs without changing the core of who they are or how we've come to know them. Another plus for me. But as I got further along in the story and the tone and pacing began to shift, I started to see just how similar Strikers was to 5, to the extent that I thought, are we seriously doing this again? Isn't this what happened last time? And that really bummed me out. Once you look past the cosmetic differences, you'll see how the core structure has remained nearly the same. Similar patterns, similar beats, similar ending. Even the characters start commenting on how it feels the same. What? Why? Towards the end, I had pretty much lost what remaining interest I had and had mentally thrown in the towel. You know, some people have said that this is pretty much a sequel to Persona 5. And for me, personally, if that really were the case, I would be hugely disappointed. because it feels like they are just rehashing the same story with a new coat of paint, but worse. Persona 5 Lite, instead of pushing us forward with a story that's unique and different. Which I guess begs the question, what was the point? Was there a story here that needed to be told, or are we just spinning our wheels? I don't entirely know, as I'm still asking myself these questions today. Reflecting on my experiences with this game always leads me to this question. Did this game need to be made? What did changing to this faster, action-oriented style combat do? Was there any benefit in doing so? Does this game present anything new story-wise, or should we have just left Persona 5 alone? I still don't know. I feel like after all my complaining, I'd be a firm no. But even still, there's something holding me back, and I think it's those flashes of potential peeking out from underneath the surface. This game has good writing, held back by its structure. It has fun character moments and intriguing adversaries, but they're stymied by pacing. It's got a foundational combat system that really just needs some fine-tuning. If they can address that last 20%, I really think they'll have a big winner. I understand that Strikers was not made by the same studio, and that it didn't have the same scope or resources, and that maybe I'm being unfair comparing it to 5. But the fact that Strikers, a spin-off Musou-esque title, can get this close to being a sequel, to feeling right at home next to its mainline entry, is an achievement worthy of praise, and has lifted Omega Force higher in my eyes. And I hope that, should they get the green light for a Strikers 2, they make whatever adjustments they need and really blast it out of the park. They're close. They're so close. But as it is now, this one's got me saying, meh. Thanks for listening to me complain about Strikers. It was, for me, therapeutic. I don't think a majority of people will have issue or take issue with the things that bothered me, so this is probably more of a minority opinion that I'm spotlighting. Up next, a new release that is actually not new at all. Let's see what craziness awaits. I hope to see you then. Bye!